The Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court will commence hearing the matter relating to the entry of women to the sanctum sanctorum of the Sabarimala temple. On the 13th of October last year, a three-judge bench comprising of Chief Justice Deepak Mishra referred the question of women's entry into Sabarimala temple to a Constitution bench. The Supreme Court would now evaluate whether barring women is discriminatory. Remember, women aged between 10 to 50 are not allowed entry into this temple. Meenakshi joining us live. Meenakshi, if you can take us through the issues really that the Supreme Court is examining at this point. On the surface of it, of course, in today's world, it is extremely discriminatory to make this kind of a gender segregation on who can enter a temple and who cannot.
Yes.
Okay, I'm afraid we have a difficulty with the audio link with Meenakshi, but we have been tracking this story since morning, this is going to be very important, not just for the Sabarimala temple, but then it might even extend to all the other temples who have these rules. Remember, the defense, of course, speaks about how these rules are protected under certain articles of the Constitution and the government cannot really interfere, or the courts cannot really breach into that. However, the Supreme Court is now going to take a relook at this entire issue to decide whether women can actually now be allowed entry into this temple and which are the provisions in the Constitution really that can actually be cited by the defense. Whether that has constitutional validity is something that is being examined. Meenakshi is back with us. Meenakshi, tell us what exactly are the issues that the Supreme Court is examining and which are the provisions of the Constitution that are being cited to actually appeal for entry of women into the Sabarimala temple?
Well, Afrida, that's a very interesting question. And yes, this is a complex issue. This is age-old traditional practice at the Ayyappa temple, which goes on to ban the entry of menstruating women inside the sanctum sanctorum. And that is what will come up for examination by the Constitution bench. It will be a hearing which will not conclude today. It will go on for a fair bit of time because there will be numerous parties who will all want to make the submissions and be heard. Now, essentially, the crux of the argument here, and which we have seen even Honorable Justice Deepak Mishra, the Honorable Chief Justice of India, make some observations on in the past, is the fact that can a physiological phenomena like menstruation be enough to allow or to rather disallow women from gaining entry inside the sanctum sanctorum. And if this is a practice, a tradition, which comes within the purview of the protection granted under Article 25 and 26 of the Constitution. That apart, the aspect of discrimination, whether such a practice is discriminatory towards the other gender, in this particular instance, the female sex, is something also that the Supreme Court will reflect on. Now, this is a high-stake matter, which is very surcharged on all sides of the spectrum. Those who feel passionately about calling this tradition archaic, and the others who want to...
Is it an essential religious practice that is protected under Article 25? That will be very, very critical in today's observations that we will keep our viewers updated with. Thanks, Meenakshi.